If there's one household appliance that symbolizes the transformation of domestic chores and time saving, it's the washing machine. It brought convenience to daily life and eliminated the need to dedicate an entire day to washing a week's worth of clothes, something that was very common until the early 1900s. But have you ever wondered who invented this innovation that we consider so common today? And what was it like before? If there is one thing we can say for sure is that, from the times when clothes were beaten against rocks on riverbanks to the invention of the first washboards, humanity has always sought ways to make this chore easier. In the American colonies, for example, women had to heat large amounts of water before washing clothes in a wash tub, using a device called a dolly to agitate the clothes in soapy water. It was an extremely exhausting task. An alternative was to beat the clothes on a flatboard with a wooden paddle until the dirt was removed. But I can only imagine what state they ended up in after that process. In warmer, more rural regions, the step of heating water and washing clothes in a large wash tub was replaced by using a stream, but the practice of beating the clothes with a wooden paddle remained. These places also served as gathering spots for the women of the community who, besides washing clothes, took the opportunity to share gossip and have a good laugh. A less popular alternative to the flatboard was the washboard with grooves carved into its surface, an invention so simple that its exact origin is unknown, with records of it found in various parts of the world. It was only with the mass production of this metal version in the late 1800s that the grooved washboard became widely popular. Evidence suggests that this 1833 American patent was the first record of this invention made of metal and wood, which became so widespread that it is still used today. Despite these innovations, washing clothes remained a tiring and difficult task. Well, except for sailors, who had come up with an ingenious solution long before the invention of washing machines. They would place their dirty clothes in thick rope nets and throw them into the sea, letting them be dragged by the moving ship. The constant flow of clean water would agitate and wash the clothes quite effectively. This process was adapted on land around the 18th century with the creation of the first manual washing machines. In 1766, in Germany, the inventor Jacob Christian Scheffer made an important contribution by combining the wash tub with the dolly stick and introducing this washing device. It was a small design improvement that represented a big step forward for those who previously had to spend long periods holding that stick with a wooden stool nailed to the end. Now, the weight of the equipment rested directly on the lid of the device. In 1782, British inventor Henry Sidger obtained a patent for a manual washing machine equipped with a rotating drum shaped like a cage, built with wooden rods. This 1829 American patent drawing looks very similar to it and helps illustrate how it worked. By spinning the drum, which was partially submerged in soapy water, the clothes inside it were agitated in the water until most of the dirt was removed. As you can see, it was a simple but effective setup that can still be found in many modern washing machine models. But the real revolution began around the 1800s, driven by the Industrial Revolution and the growth of urban populations, especially among the American middle class, who had more money but less time to spare. This situation created a demand for devices that could save time on household chores, such as the washing machine. In the United States, the first patent for a washing machine was granted to Nathaniel Briggs from New Hampshire in 1797, but the original record was destroyed in the Great Patent Office Fire of 1836. These patents with impressive drawings are some of the documents that were saved and restored, but Nathaniel Briggs' patent wasn't so lucky. What is known is that his machine was manually operated and served as inspiration for other inventors to continue improving it. This patent granted to William Folsom in 1805 survived the fire and is the oldest known U.S. patent that includes a drawing of a washing machine. It is also an example of the many patents on this subject that emerged during that time. Since washing clothes required relatively simple movements, it became a focus for many inventors of that period, who saw an opportunity to create a machine that could relieve people of this arduous task and, who knows, maybe even make them rich. There were so many creative ideas during this period that I decided to highlight a few here. Many of these patents feature handwritten descriptions with words that are difficult to read, but just by looking at the drawings, you can get an idea of how they worked. You'll notice that most of these designs mimic the movements people made when washing clothes, scrubbing, moving back and forth, and wringing. Besides being incredibly creative, all of these pre-1836 US patents were restored after the fire and feature amazing illustrations. I'm always impressed. This 1828 patent features a very modern horizontal drum design, compared to most of the projects registered during this period, a configuration that remains in many models today and was also present in British inventor Henry Sigier's 1782 design. This 1829 patent was very similar to his design, remember? I even used it as an example. The difference is that, in this project, the clothes weren't meant to be placed inside the drum, but between the drum and the lower grid. This spring was responsible for pressing the drum against the clothes, scrubbing them as the cylinder rotated. That same year, an inventor named Charles registered this other rather creative washing machine, though, in my opinion, not very practical. Besides having many moving parts prone to failure, the clothes would likely end up piling up at the bottom of the tank, compromising the cleaning process. On the other hand, Arnold's machine here, registered the following year, would certainly have been more effective at cleaning clothes thanks to the intense agitation of soapy water that its mechanism would have provided. But this inventor took creativity a step further by adding wooden balls inside a rotating square drum. I imagine the idea was to create pressure on the fabric, forcing soapy water to pass through it. Additionally, these containers would collect water from the bottom and pour it over the drum with each turn. Pretty creative, don't you think? This 1831 machine, on the other hand, comes closer to what would become a modern washing machine, featuring a rotating cylindrical drum. The inventor also added an external hot water boiler to help remove dirt, a small detail that makes a big difference. The following year, in 1832, inventor Benton filed this patent for a machine that looks like a curved washboard with a gear rolling on top, or, for those familiar with mechanics, a rack and pinion system. But honestly, that linen shirt of yours would probably get shredded in this thing. Meanwhile, the inventors of this 1835 patent and these other two from 1836 had very similar ideas, but they were still not very practical. They even look like a robot's legs moving clothes back and forth in soapy water. Quite different from this 1836 model, which features a horizontal drum and an external boiler to heat the water, an idea that, at that time, was no longer new, but shows how the inventors were refining their designs. By the way, in 1851, American inventor James King patented this machine with a manually operated rotating boiler, which is cited by some sources as the first washing machine with a horizontal drum. But, based on the records I just showed, we can say that this is not true. Still, it was an important and more sophisticated design than the previous ones. The inventor highlights in the patent that the machine could wash the same amount of clothes that 12 people could wash by hand, while also saving soap and fuel. A few years later, in 1858, Hamilton Smith filed this idea for a washing machine, which is also often mentioned as one of the first. It wasn't one of the first, but it did have a very interesting mechanism. It used a plunger and two movable diaphragms inside a tank with heated water to clean clothes using mechanical pressure. The clothes were placed on a perforated upper diaphragm, which sat above another diaphragm with valves that opened upward. When the plunger was pressed down, both diaphragms were also compressed, forcing hot water through the holes and valves and passing through the clothes. When the plunger was lifted, the springs under the lower diaphragm created suction, pulling freshly heated water into the tank and maintaining a continuous cycle of hot water circulation. Pretty ingenious, don't you think? Another name frequently mentioned in this fascinating story is William Blackstone from Indiana, who is also credited with inventing the first washing machine for home use in 1874. Well, by now, we already know it wasn't the first, but the story behind this machine is quite interesting. It is said to have begun when Blackstone, moved by the sight of his wife's exhausting labor, decided to help her with the task. But no, he didn't help wash the clothes. Instead, he designed a washing machine and gave it to her as a birthday present, which, for that time, was already a big step forward. Although his invention wasn't groundbreaking on a global scale, it was still innovative in his region, allowing him to start selling units to his neighbors for $2.50 each, and, later, to establish the Blackstone Manufacturing Company. Until the early 1900s, household washing machines were made of wood and operated manually, while commercial machines were made of metal and, in some cases, powered by steam engines. They were ingenious machines, but by today's standards, they were quite rudimentary and often damaged clothes. Everything changed in 1908 with the introduction of the Thor, the first commercially successful electric washing machine, made possible by the advent of the electric motor and driven by the increasing availability of electricity in homes. Although many sources incorrectly credit Alva John Fisher with inventing the first electric washing machine in 1908, with a patent filed in 1909. Records like this one show that earlier patents had already mentioned the use of electric motors in washing machines. The current consensus is that the inventor of the first electric washing machine remains unknown. Fisher's achievement was producing the first electric washing machine on a large scale, patented in partnership with the company where he worked, the Hurley Machine Company. The machine, commercially named Thor, used an electric motor to rotate a perforated drum mounted horizontally inside a tub filled with soapy water. Inside the drum, some paddles lifted the clothes as it turned, and after 8 rotations, the direction was reversed to prevent the fabrics from bunching into a compact mass. It was a portable machine that eliminated the manual effort of cranking and replaced it with the convenience of an electric motor. But just like Thor from mythology, who hurled lightning bolts on stormy days, the Thor washing machine, and others like it, often gave people electric shocks when water leaked into the exposed motor at the bottom. This also led to short circuits, overheating, and sometimes even fatal electric shocks. Over time, the collective and gradual work of inventors and researchers from different companies made electric motors safer and more efficient, as well as improving the materials used and the overall design of the machines. Contributions came from companies like the Upton Machine Company, now Whirlpool, which was already producing electric washing machines as early as 1911. Another accessory present in the Thor machine, as well as in other manual and electric machines of the time, was the wringer roller system. The manual clothes wringer was a common piece of equipment in home laundries during the early 1900s. It was used to change the state of clothes from soaking wet to damp in a slow, manual process, as each piece had to be passed through individually. To reduce manual effort, the wringer was soon powered by an electric motor, which made the task easier but also more dangerous, earning a reputation for crushing people's fingers during use. The solution to this problem was to place the clothes in a perforated metal drum and spin it at high speed, forcing the water out. This idea existed even before electricity, as seen in this 1871 washing and spinning machine, designed to be powered by a steam engine via a belt at this point. However, with electricity, this process could be implemented much more efficiently and compactly. By the way, the term centrifugation is widely used to describe the effect of clothes being pushed against the walls of the spinning drum. But from a physics perspective, this term refers to a centrifugal pseudo-force that doesn't actually exist. What really happens is the action of the centripetal force, which keeps the clothes moving in a circular motion inside the drum, while the absence of this force in the water allows it to escape through the drum's perforations. This solution was implemented in 1937 in the first automatic washing machine for home use, launched by Bendix Home Appliances. Bendix was the first to incorporate an automated washing cycle controlled by a timer. It also had other essential features of a modern machine, such as a rotating drum, an automatic drainage system, and spinning. This was a huge advancement in household convenience, as it no longer required constant supervision. Just load the clothes into the machine and use the time for something else. It was also in 1937, according to my research, that the first patent for an electric clothes dryer was filed by Henry W. Altorfer. The machine used a combination of ultraviolet lamps, heated air blowers, and a perforated rotating drum to dry clothes. Today we are surrounded by so many conveniences that we hardly realize how comfortable our lives are compared to those of our ancestors, a privilege that, in the past, only the very wealthy, with numerous servants, could enjoy. I'm definitely grateful to be able to just toss my clothes into the machine and forget about them until they're clean. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Also, here are some other videos I'm showing on the screen that you'll probably like. I highly recommend them.